Coming to you from Newman University's Real Studio B, the current favorite sports broadcast of sports media personality Bill Simmons.
Is that right?
Yeah, shockingly.
Thanks for the shout out, Bill.
Prepare to enter the wider world.
This is the worldwide world of worldwide sports. I am AJ, and as always, I'm joined by Matt Leake. Matt Leake, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Doing great. This has been a long time coming.
Yes, we've had a lot of issues trying to get this recording done.
We've had countless issues trying to get this together.
Countless attempts to come to the school and record.
Countless failed attempts of trying to even get into the studio.
Yes,
thank you for that.
I was locked out of every building on campus. I was deemed a threat.
I wouldn't.
That's not actually true. That's not actually true. That's not actually true.
I wouldn't say he was deemed a threat.
No,
but
I just found out that I have 2 ID cards, and only one of them lets me into buildings, the other one doesn't. So we kind of had to fix that. But we are also recording from the actual Studio B this time. I know last week we said we were at Studio B. Turns out that was not the case.
Yeah, it turns out we were in the wrong room, recording at the wrong spot,
and at a place we were not supposed to be. But we are in the proper venue this week, and
so upfront apologies about the mics because we are still trying to figure that situation out.
Yeah.
Please forgive us for any inconsistencies.
But being in the proper venue, I feel like that transitions perfectly into our topic this week, which is stadium disasters, tragedies that have gone on in sports venues. People who thought they were going to a game just to watch a game, and things turned out for the absolute worst case scenario.
This is going to be a downer of a podcast, I promise.
Probably more of a downer than last week. I know we talked about brutality, a lot of murder.
We talked a lot about morbid stuff, but Don't worry, it's only going to get worse.
I think this idea of violence in sports is probably worse.
This is accidental violence. This is not planned violence. It's also not even really violence, I would say. It's just disaster.
I'd say, at least in some of these, it was definitely violence inflicted upon people.
Oh, for sure. I mean, from the research I've done, there was one that I will get to later where there's just needless attacks being done in the stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
But
for starters, we're going to look at the Bradford City Fire. This took place on May 11th, 1985. At the Valley Parade Stadium in Bradford. This was a match between
Bradford what country?
Bradford, United Kingdom.
Oh, very nice. All right.
This is a match between Bradford and Lincoln City. It was the Division III title match. Basically how the league works is whoever has the most points mathematically will become the champion. And this wasn't necessarily the championship match. This is just the day that they were presenting the title at Bradford City Stadium.
Oh, God.
This
can't be good.
We're going to talk about some factors that led up to the fire. So for one, the stadium was incredibly, incredibly old. The main stand was built 80 years before this event took place and remained completely unchanged from when it was created in 1905.
Did they have any renovations be done throughout the lifetime leading up to this
There were
event?
renovations in other sections of the stadium,
but there wasn't any mass renovation.
No, there were renovations around the stadium, but the particular stand which caught fire remained completely unchanged from 1905 to 1985.
That is wild.
And looking at the stand, there are some things that obviously contributed to this fire. There was a wooden roof with tar layering. There were wooden benches for people to sit on. The floors were wooden.
You'd think building codes in the 80s would have prevented half of this, but
well, because it wasn't built in the 80s.
No, I know, but I thought you had to keep stuff up to code.
No, soccer regulation was lagging extremely behind up until the late 80s, early 90s. And
the damn English.
Because of these disasters is kind of what kicked them into gear.
Yeah.
There were also
about right.
wooden support beams built into the hillside behind the stand because the stadium was built on a hill.
Oh, my God.
And there was also an open area below the stands where there was a large buildup of trash. People would just drop their stuff during the game, drop their extremely flammable materials, scarves, plastic cups, plastic plates.
What the hell?
And this was never cleaned up.
For the 80 years that they never touched anything?
Well,
my!
I'm sure they would.
God.
I'm sure they would clean up from time to time, but
but nothing.
But
drastic.
It was known that there was a consistent buildup of trash below the stands.
That's really dumb.
Another thing that contributed to the
people.
fact, nothing that contributed to the disaster. There were 4 turnstiles into the main stand. for over 1,000 people.
That seems like a little too small of a space.
We'll get there.
Oh boy.
Now, at the time of the disaster, the stand was actually officially condemned and was due to be replaced with steel structure at the end of the season, and the wooden stands were meant to be replaced with concrete. In total, this renovation would have only cost £400,000 or $1.5 million in today's money.
But this is back in what, 1985?
Yes.
It's a sizable chunk. But
As I guess especially for.
For a thriving soccer team.
Not thriving. Division III, no, not thriving.
Oh, so very much bottom of the barrel.
So, about 40 minutes into the game, a cigarette was dropped in between the benches. It was still lit, and it caught fire on the trash buildup below the stands.
Good God.
Within a couple of seconds, you could see the smoke coming out. The match official was brought to attention. People started running onto the field. Initially, people thought that people were running onto the field in celebration because this was the title match or whatever.
It was not a celebration.
Yeah. But very quickly, everyone's kind of noticed that there was a fire starting, and people started rushing out. But have you watched the videos of this?
I have not seen any footage.
The videos of this broadcast the video of this broadcast is still available online through Vimeo. It is crazy how fast the fire spreads.
Are we talking in the matter of less than half a minute?
The entire stand goes up in flames within 4 minutes.
Good God.
And there was over 1,000 people.
Oh no.
In that.
Oh my God.
people start coming out. People notice the fire, but then like people on the other side or like even like one section over are just like standing there, and then very quickly they realize, oh, it's coming to us, and they have to like immediately run out of the stand.
That is not good.
Another thing that caught me from watching the video was just that like nobody really understood how bad things were at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
In the video, when fans start streaming onto the field and the match is eventually postponed, you see the fans celebrating and singing, just like making jokes.
Mm-hmm.
They do interviews. There were some interviews I saw with some of the fans afterwards where they were still like making jokes about it because the official death toll hadn't come in yet. And I think a big reason for that is because a majority of the people who died at the turnstiles, which were behind the stands. So the people who weren't able to run onto the field to escape the fire,
they escaped through the back, but
had
they
to go
couldn't
through the
escape.
turnstiles. But
Yep.
that many people going through just one door, it was never going to work out. So the majority of the people who died ended up dying behind the stands. But even in the video, you can see like people rushing into the stands to pull people out. You can see people running for their lives out of it. And there was one guy who had his entire head on fire.
Nice.
There was an old woman who I saw get pulled out where her entire back of her jacket was scorched, pure black. And I saw an interview of her after the event where she was still wearing the exact same jacket, and it was still just like completely.
I don't think
black.
she could take it off. I'm gonna be honest. I think that jacket might have been stuck to her.
Mm-hmm. In total, there were about 56 deaths and 265 injuries. There was after the event, there was an inquiry led by Oliver Popplewell. This led to wooden grandstands being banned around the United Kingdom. It led to an immediate closure of every single wooden stand that was deemed unsafe.
Tight.
And it also led to a banning of smoking in wooden stands. So, again, to your point, you'd think by the 80s they would realize maybe having a stadium made of wood was probably not a great idea.
I mean,
but
at Hershey Park, there's a roller coaster made out of wood, and I still don't trust it. And that roller coaster's been there forever. Stop making stuff out of wood. That's my thing. We live in a world where you can refine metal. Oh my God.
Also within the inquiries, it was found that the club had received multiple notices leading up to the disaster in 1984. There was a county council engineer letter which said, and I quote, "Problems should be rectified as soon as possible," and I quote, "A careless discarded cigarette could give rise to a fire risk." This was a year before.
Predicted the fire, basically? Well, unintentionally predicted the fire. I'm not going to claim that they knew that it was going to happen, but
I'm just saying it was very predictable.
Yeah, but don't light a cigarette up here. Just change it. You're a soccer team. I'm sorry.
During the inquest into the deaths, the county found that the club was 2/3 responsible and the city council was 1/3 responsible. The club, obviously, for dragging their feet on renovations, and the county council for
not
pushing
cracking
it.
down on it. Yep.
Yeah, for giving them notices of how dangerous it was and not officially condemning it earlier.
Yeah, I figured that the town would have at least come in and been like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't keep people in the wooden stands." I think that would be a smart idea, especially since you've renovated. I'm not going to say 90%, but 80% of the stadium. Keep them out of there. It wouldn't be too bad.
And this also led to 20 million pounds in payouts for the families and victims. I'm not sure exactly how much that is in today's money.
That feels like a class action lawsuit. Also, if we're going off of your estimations earlier, that's probably 40 million American dollars, somewhere around that.
In today's money, you think?
Well, you said that the renovations costed around 450,000 pounds.
400,000 pounds.
400,000 pounds, which would be, you said, what, $1.1 million?
1.5 million today.
So, yeah, let's go probably 45 million.
But,
in payouts.
I mean, but you also have to think, like, how much money can you put on a human life?
Apparently $45 million, but that's also for how many people? 56 people died? Yeah, no. Not worth it. That's $1 million basically per person.
And how much less you could have had to pay just to fix the stands in the first place?
They could have paid 450,000 pounds and ended up spending 20 million pounds?
Less.
Wild. I don't understand. I don't get that at all, if I'm going to be honest.
One thing I do want to point out is that there's one particular survivor of this event. His name is Martin Fletcher. He's written multiple books about this. During the fire, he lost 3 generations of his family.
3?
He lost his younger brother, grandfather, father, and uncle.
My God.
So he has been on a crusade for the past, let's say, 40 years.
It's around that, yeah.
He has made a couple of allegations against the club owner. In his books, he has written about how at 7 previous businesses that the owner of Bradford City Football Club at the time
so tells me there was some fishy stuff.
He had at 7 previous businesses he had business locations go up in flames.
So is he I haven't read any of this, but is he speculating that these are insurance fires?
Yes.
Nice.
So obviously he can never say this in his interviews. He never outright says that because he's going to get sued. But
yeah,
that's
the defamation.
The allegation is that he's doing insurance fraud.
Good Lord. Well, I mean, if you have what is this now 8 businesses that you're in charge of go up in flames,
and one of them just before renovations are supposed to go up, that would have come out of the club's pocket.
So my question is it known who threw the cigarette onto the stands?
There is, I believe there was a name, but I'm not going to say because it's just speculation.
No. I was just curious if there was even an idea of who threw it, because if you could connect the two, then you got a story.
Well, because there is the person I've seen who claims to have dropped the cigarette was an Australian fan who was in America, who was in England traveling to watch the game.
Weirdly, that makes it seem more plausible because he doesn't have any local ties.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I feel like anybody who takes credit for, hey, I was the guy who killed 56 people.
Fucking my apologies. I'm the guy who murdered 56 people in a mass fire and got them stuck in turnstiles. It's just
God, like I'm just thinking about like the idea of dying at turnstiles.
Can you imagine? No, not just dying at turnstiles. Imagine running from your life from a fire, and then you get stuck in a mass of people, and you can't get out because there's only 4 turnstiles, and there's 1,000 of you.
Mm-hmm.
Wild. Don't understand that at all. Being at the front of that line must have sucked, and being at the back of that line must have sucked even more.
Yeah.
Being in the middle was probably the sweet spot.
Well, no, being in the middle, you would be subject to the human crush. As
well
as the noxious fumes.
You're talking to a man who went into Center City after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. If you're in the middle, you're not going to get crushed. So the first wave goes down. You're in that second wave. Mm-hmm. You can get over the first wave. I had to get someone out of being pummeled and crushed on Broad Street.
Was it?
It was a rough time.
Mm-hmm. But in tandem with the Bradford City fire, there was another major disaster in the 80s that kind of led to the chartering of new regulations for soccer stadiums across the United Kingdom, and that was Hillsborough. So this took place on April 15th, 1989 in Hillsborough, Sheffield. Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield. It was an FA Cup semifinal between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. So back in the day, semifinals were held in neutral grounds, but
Mhm.
today they're held at Wembley Stadium.
Is that still technically a neutral ground?
Yeah, well, because Wembley is just
Wembley just hosts.
Wembley is the national stadium, so Wembley hosts cup semifinals.
Oh, but
and-
it's still technically neutral ground because it's not like,
No.
we're gonna put you in Liverpool. or
Yeah,
something.
no club plays there. There isn't a club in England that plays at Wembley. But
Regularly.
But back in the day, they would have neutral games at club stadiums. So this one was the home stadium of Sheffield Wednesday, I think. Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, it was in Sheffield, South Yorkshire, England.
So some background into this stadium. Liverpool fans were occupying the north and west stands, which had a total of 23 turnstiles, while the Nottingham fans were in the south stand, which had 60 turnstiles. Inside,
what was the first number? My
23. So
apologies. Oh,
Liverpool's end had a third of the turnstiles as the Nottingham fans did.
seems kind of strange,
into it.
but you know.
Well, because it was the away section. Normally at an away game, there aren't really supposed to be that many. Like, you usually allocate like a couple of thousand.
Well, because you're not expecting all of the away fans to show up and
Right.
show out. You're expecting home fans to show
Yeah,
up.
but in a cup semifinal, they rent out half of the stadium for each team.
So it's not like when you and
So
I
it-
went to the Union game that one time and I
And
saw a
there's 12
section.
people.
There was
Yeah.
like 12 Red Bull fans.
Yeah.
And we were just making fun of them from
Mhm.
above.
No, so yeah, and yeah, a larger number than normal in a smaller section.
The recipe for disaster, in my opinion. But
Inside of the main stand, where there was the pen, where most of the deaths took place, there were 7 turnstiles, and the pen stand had a capacity of 10,000.
no.
There were also steel fencing in the pen. That was meant to divide the fans and prevent human crushing, but in this event, it actually ended up exacerbating it.
Well, because if a stand breaks and there's a bunch of people behind it,
Mhm.
you know. I think that's in my notes. I literally have crowd push crush.
Yeah.
Just those 3 words.
Actually, and this pen, like with Bradford City, where this was a tragedy waiting to happen, there had already been previous crushes in this pen. So in 1981, there was another FA Cup semifinal game between Wolves and Spurs. There were several injuries, fans reporting crushing and asphyxia. And this one actually got Hillsborough banned from hosting FA Cup semifinal games for a while. Eventually, they were able to host again. And the previous year, these two exact same teams, Liverpool and Nottingham, had another semifinal game in Hillsborough
Mm-hmm.
and also reported crushing.
Was it as bad as this instance?
No, I don't believe there were any deaths, just injuries.
Oh, well.
But again, this pen was known to cause injuries and cause
And they
crushes.
just let it go.
Basically.
Oh, nice. So I'm just going to put a disclaimer out here. Most of these are just due to neglect by the stadium's
Absolutely.
Maintenance facilities and such.
Mhm.
Because I have countless notes on tragedies, and all of them feel avoidable except for probably one. But even then, that one was also kind of avoidable.
So I will say for the Tottenham and Wolves game, there were 38 injuries, and they actually reached Sheffield chairman Bert McGee for comment, and he famously remarked, "Bollocks! No one would have been killed."
Lies.
Yeah, exactly. So
Lie.
8 years later, we come to the day, April 15th. In the lead up to the game, Gate C, which was reserved for fans exiting the stadium, was opened by police as kickoff approached because there were so many people outside the stadium. The police justification for this was that they wanted to avoid a crush outside the stadium. So
their solution was to what again?
Entry into the stand
Uh-huh.
only had 2 turnstiles.
Okay.
So what they did
Bad
was
idea.
they have a gate.
They opened.
Yeah,
said
they
gate.
opened the gate, which is only supposed to be opened when fans are leaving the stadium.
Because does
bec-
it block off a certain portion of a hallway or something?
No, just because it's to get them out quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
Because coming into a stadium, people are coming early because they expect a line. But
Yeah.
coming out of a stadium, you don't really have to worry about like having people funnel through to check their tickets, check their
Because
check
everybody's
their bodies.
just everybody's just
Yeah.
popping out.
Exactly. You can fully open a gate and have 10 times as many people go through because you don't have to check them for tickets or check their persons, check if they have anything on them.
Fair.
But this of course exacerbated the crushing that was already happening in the pen prior to the game.
Because it was allowing too many people to go through at the exact same time.
Absolutely. So 5 minutes into the game, Police Superintendent Roger Greenwood got the referee Ray Lewis to stop the match after he noticed.
Ray Lewis? Shout out Baltimore Ravens. Continue.
He noticed an incident was occurring. He didn't know exactly what was going on at the time, but he knew something was wrong, so he got the match ref to stop the game. Gates and holes in the fencing were being ripped open by the fans to allow the escape. Fans were climbing up out of the pen into the upper area.
That's just a bad idea.
Fathers were they're just trying to escape. Fathers were hoisting up their children to be pulled up into the north stand to escape.
I have totals from this as well.
I as well. So, on the day, 94 people died.
Ooh, no, I had a different number.
Mm.
So on the day I had 96 deaths, but there's 97 total deaths.
Yes, that's what I got into. So, on the actual day of the disaster, 94 people died. 2 more died of their injuries later.
But then we had one that died of complications of his injuries in 2021.
Yes.
Poor guy.
That was the 96th. The 97th.
That was the 97th. The 97th.
That was the 97th.
Yeah.
The 98th.
There's 98?
Yeah, 98th is Stephen Whittle. He's considered the 98th by Liverpool fans. He committed suicide in 2011. He basically suffered from survivor's guilt because he gifted his ticket to his friend to go to the game, and his friend died at the match.
So he's not technically a casualty of this event, but his death is a byproduct of the event. Okay.
The other 3 in the 97 who didn't die on the day all died of complications as a result of this.
It was just due to injuries.
The one in 2021, I believe, had brain damage.
He did. He had irreversible brain damage, and I believe I don't want to go into it that much, but he did sadly pass away in 2021 due to complications.
Mm-hmm. And
also, in terms of injuries, we had a total of 766 non-fatal injuries, which is an astonishing number.
It's not even good. I know,
But also, it's weird because it pales in comparison to some of the ones that I have in my notes.
Yeah. Looking at the death total, a majority of them were young people, as young as 10. So there were 38 victims between the ages of 10 and 19.
Oh, my God.
And there were 41 between the ages of 20 and 29.
This is just sad. This is just sad.
Another thing that but another thing that exacerbated the issues at Hillsborough were the fact that only 3 ambulances were on site. One of them...
Did you just say only 3 ambulances were on site?
Only 3.
I've attended a basketball game that had 6. And this was for the Sixers, the lowly Sixers. Yes, I'm going to trash them on this podcast.
But yeah, one of them was able to get onto the field, but if you watch videos of this disaster back, you can see that there just weren't enough first responders to deal with the number of casualties.
You had damn near 1,000 people get either injured or murdered.
Yeah, there was you can see videos of fans helping, basically making makeshift stretchers out of the out of the advertising boards,
boards and tarps that they could find, or the banners.
Fencing. Yeah.
Yep.
But this disaster is extremely controversial for the media reaction afterwards, and
I actually have no idea that there was backlash.
So to give context for the media controversy afterwards, I need you to talk about Hazel.
Oh, okay. So let me go through my notes. Hazel, what the hell?
The UEFA Cup.
Oh, okay. So segue into my thing. The UEFA Cup in Russia in October of 1982. This was a disaster that was not widely known about at the time of it happening, but that's because the Soviet Union decided they weren't going to release info to the rest of the world until they could, keep it under wraps. But they weren't playing another Russian team at the time. They were playing a Dutch team, so news inevitably broke out. But so fans were crushed. They didn't disclose a whole lot. It was an exit. There was an exit. Oh, yeah. No, I actually have it. So there was an exit at the stadium that was apparently not up to code. But everybody tried to exit through the one exit that they had open. and the Soviet Union decided. Oh, also, because this is a sports podcast, this was Spartak Moscow versus Dutch HFC
No,
Haarlem.
you're doing the wrong one.
You said Heysel.
Yeah, Heysel is Juventus versus Liverpool.
That's the Euro Cup final.
No, but it's called the Heysel disaster.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about the Russians in a little bit, but moving on to something else that happened.
I was wondering, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I was talking about the Russians. All right. So what he wanted me to talk about was the Belgian European Cup final, or European Cup final that was held in Belgium against Juventus and Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
It was at the Heysel Stadium in Brussels, Belgium.
Yes.
And I don't have a whole hell of a lot on this, but I do know that there was fan violence in the stand. 39 were dead,
right,
and over 600 were injured due to whatever the hell happened. Let me get this article.
What had happened was that, to my understanding, a stand in the crowd collapsed.
I believe,
and it led to the death of Juventus fans. And I know the outcome of this was that English teams were banned from European competition for a number of years.
I did not read any of this. Thank you for getting me up to date on this. I had one article that was throwing things at me.
But yes, this sort of stigma then followed Liverpool fans as hooligans.
Sounds about right. Your Liverpool fans have a bad rap now, I thought.
I mean, every fan base has a bad rap because nobody likes them.
Well, yeah. Also, I think people hate on Liverpool needlessly because I think LeBron owns a part of
Liverpool.
The team.
Yes, LeBron does own Liverpool.
Needless hate.
We were actually we had some haters in class today. We were my teacher.
LeBron haters?
Yeah, my teacher had us do a hands up if you think LeBron is the GOAT. Hands up if you think Jordan is the GOAT.
I would have raised my hand for LeBron.
I raised my hand for LeBron. He's my sunshine.
My glorious king.
LeBron to me is more of a father figure than my actual father. Care for comment?
I was just thinking if I resonated with that, but maybe, kinda, a little bit. LeBron's been there for me more, but
LeBron has been a consistent figure in my life.
I've actually never lived in a world where LeBron was not an NBA basketball player, like an active NBA basketball player. At least I wasn't sentient.
My earliest memories were LeBron at the Heat. You know.
Oh my God! I remember when there was a kid. We're going off on a tangent about LeBron, but I remember one day during elementary school. I think it was it was before he won his first title. There was a kid in my class yelling at my fifth grade teacher, and he was like, "LeBron's the GOAT. LeBron's the greatest of all time." And the teacher was like, "No, he's not. No, he's not." I think my teacher was trying to defend Dwayne Wade. For some reason, which was confusing to me. He had like a D. Wade book on his desk. But yeah, no. I watched basically a 10-year-old child and a 40-year-old man argue about who the greatest basketball player of all time was. And this was before LeBron had any rings. Moving back on to the stadium tragedy.
Getting back to the disaster. So, English soccer fans already had the stigma of hooliganism and violence.
They still kind of do to this day, but...
certain ones, yeah, but in the 80s particularly, and especially Liverpool fans because of the Heysel disaster, Liverpool fans were blamed for the stand collapse, and they were blamed for the death of the Juventus fans. So
I believe it was due to the violence. I do remember reading a fight broke out in the stands right before the collapse happened, and they attribute that fight because it was a mass fight. At least 50 people were involved. They attribute that to the structural integrity breaking. But, don't get into fights in stands. I feel like I didn't read anything about an American stadium suffering a tragedy.
Yeah, I wanted to look up stuff in America that happened.
There's nothing.
Every tragedy is just like one guy fell.
There was like an almost tragedy that I saw in it was like some weird like Cardinals game. St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
I believe in the late 80s, a man went for a foul ball or like a home run ball or a foul ball off the balcony and almost just went all the way over. He saved himself, and it was the most American thing I've ever seen.
I saw the one where it was the Bills fan who fell into a hole outside the stadium that was filled with raw sewage.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, there was I think there was a hole beneath a porta potty or something. He jumped the fence to try to get into the stadium and then fell in the hole for hours.
That's what he gets for being a Bills fan. I'm also a Josh Allen hater. Continue.
But yes, to your point, I actually was surprised.
There's none.
And we should be thankful that we have such staunch regulations. And I actually want to get into this at the end of the podcast. But
I do want to get into American regulations at the end of the podcast.
But
as well.
the backlash against Liverpool fans after this disaster was mostly a product of a police cover-up. So Police Inspector Gordon Sykes claimed fans were, among other things, fans were pickpocketing the dead. Other anonymous police members claimed that Liverpool fans were pissing on cops during the event.
This sounds about right.
Yeah, cursing out the police,
Checks out.
stopping ambulances from getting to the.
Why are they such horrible people?
Well,
this is why they got the rap they did.
No,
or these accusations?
These are complete lies.
These are complete rumors.
No, these are
Okay.
No, they're just not. They're not rumors. They're lies. They were straight up lies.
They
from
were
the
just
police.
fabricating stuff.
The police chief Duckenfield claimed that the gate C, which had let so many fans into the pen to lead to the human crush, was forced open by fans.
So what I'm hearing
later
is that they weren't even supposed to really be there.
No, later evidence showed that obviously the police were the ones responsible. The police were the ones who chose to open the gate. The police claims about fans pickpocketing and the police claims about fans pissing on police, complete fabrications. Basically just to cover their own asses.
This wasn't. So what I'm hearing is this disaster was not fully on the fans or the stadium's maintenance.
I believe it was on the stadium maintenance. I believe the layout of the away section was pitiful and was, again, a disaster waiting to happen because there had already been human crushes in that exact stand.
So
I lay the blame on the stadium owners, the stadium architects, and the police.
Fair. I'd take that.
But because of the claims coming out from police directly to the media, this led to multiple days of national media across the United Kingdom slandering Liverpool fans. In particular, we have a list of newspapers that made derogatory articles about the Liverpool fans after this. We have the Daily Star, the Daily Mail, the Daily Express, the Evening Standard, the Liverpool Daily Post, Manchester Evening News, Yorkshire Post, Sheffield Star, and The Sun, among others. The Sun, in particular, had an incredibly
scathing review.
Scathing.
Damn, I see you even have the article up.
Kelvin Mackenzie, who many years later had to apologize for this article.
He had to apologize. Why did he have to? I'm not even going to ask. Just
too little, too late, obviously.
Give me a little synopsis.
On April 19th, just 4 days after, Kelvin Mackenzie, editor of The Sun, published a front-page story called The Truth, where he claimed in the 3 sublines, some fans pickpocketed the victims, some fans urinated on brave cops, and some fans beat up PC, giving kiss of life. Mackenzie apparently initially...
Aren't those all fabrications?
Yes, Mackenzie initially wanted the actual article title to be "You Scum."
I feel like he had something out for the fans of Liverpool, and I don't truthfully understand why, because I'm not a soccer fan. But
yes.
that just seems personal. It doesn't seem like he was trying to cover anything real.
But this was an extremely influential article in terms of shaping the perception around the country and around the world.
Well, I don't know about the acclaim of The Sun, but it seems like it would have been a big deal, especially since, when did this happen? 89?
89.
Yeah, this happened in 1989. Print media was still woo.
The king, yeah. But there were those accusations. There was tons of accusations that the fans were drunk, and that's what was causing the mayhem.
Of course they were drunk.
Yeah.
They were at a soccer game.
But what I'm saying is that these claims weren't true.
No, I know, but it just seems let's blame them for all these issues. It's all the Liverpool fans' problem. No, maybe you should have constructed an actual stadium instead of just this looks good on paper.
It's fine, yeah. Just shove 10,000 people into a 10x10 box. I'm sure
and then
fine.
let's let the exits be like you're at a ranch and you're trying to get a cow herded into something. Like I don't get it.
Yeah. Another comment, and this is why I wanted you to bring up Hazel, was from UEFA president Jacques Georges. He called them, and I quote, beasts.
Beasts.
For their perceived role in this disaster and their perceived role in Hazel.
Wow.
So
everybody, this whole Hillsborough disaster just pisses me off.
So another part of the police cover-up, the main coroner on the case, Dr. Stephen Popper, he ruled out evidence from after 3:15 p.m. As, and I quote, the damage was already done. Later on in further inquiries, we will find out that was not the case. But before we get into the later re-inquiries into the case, we will talk about the initial ones. So, an initial inquiry found Police Chief Duckenfield to be somebody who failed to take effective control, but they didn't find him guilty of gross negligence. I think with the evidence that they have now, they would have found him guilty.
Oh, for sure.
The effects of this, English stadiums around the UK were forced to move to all-seater stadiums. Standing sections were banned. Standing sections had been a staple for well over 100 years.
Oh yeah, it was the cheap seats.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying like some stadiums didn't even have seats for a while. Like
it was just standing room.
Yeah, just so you could pack in as many people as possible. So like,
well, yeah,
as
an regulations aren't.
As an example of like kind of how ridiculous the attendance numbers could be, Chelsea's current stadium, Stamford Bridge, after renovations for the last 20 years, is a 60,000 seater.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early 1900s, it could fit over 100,000.
They just love packing people in the stadium.
Exactly.
Coliseum feel. I get it, but it's just you could do it in a much better way.
So there was a nationwide move to all-seater stadiums. This was imposed in the top two leagues, the Premier League and the Championship, by 1994. There were new regulations and crowd control measures. There were new regulations and emergency procedures. And stadiums and cities in general were forced to create professional safety teams.
Makes sense. I'm shocked they didn't have those to begin with. But
so in 2010, a new Hillsborough Independent Panel was started to kind of relitigate the disaster, because Liverpool fans had basically campaigned for the last 20 to 30 years to try and clear their names and really get the truth about what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
To get through the police cover-up, to clear up the slander about them and their family. Because even if you're not a Liverpool fan, like if you're an Everton fan, like, everyone in Liverpool knew somebody who died, basically.
Yeah.
Everybody either had
Especially
a family
since
member.
It was what, 60,000 seat arena, 100,000 seat arena? I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's a big arena.
Mm-hmm.
You're bound to at least get people connected in some way. The whole thing feels like it could have been avoided.
Absolutely.
100%
all of
avoidable.
Everything we're talking about feels like it could have been avoided. But
actually, I got one that it was kind of an act of God, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. So after by relitigating the case in April 2016, the Hillsborough inquest concluded that the 96 people who died in 1989 were unlawfully killed. The jurors also agreed that fans played no part in the deaths and instead blamed the police and the stadium designers,
So
and the delayed response from ambulance services.
They were on your side on this one. Nice.
Yes. And another thing that they looked into was the initial coroner's report. So he had ruled out evidence after 315 because he said the damage was already done. But upon relitigation, they found that of the 96 that died, 41 of them could have been saved.
So half of them could have been saved.
Half of them could have been saved if there was more immediate action by emergency services.
So I blame,
after 315.
You've heard it here first, folks. I blame the first responders.
Almost half of them.
Oh my God.
Well, again, they only had 3 ambulances.
I know, but that's
only one of them was able to get in the field.
And that is because of poor planning.
Absolutely.
But why would they ever plan for a disaster when it was a known thing that could easily happen at their stadium specifically? I hate these people so much.
Yes, but
let's stop giving them shine.
But the thing is that eventually, after years of fighting, the Liverpool fans were finally given justice, which, props to them. They
shouldn't have had to fight for justice.
They shouldn't have had to fight for justice. But this is a thing with this is the thing with the English government in general. I'm an Irish history guy.
I know you're a big fan of Irish history. Isn't that you wanted to go to school for archaeology, specifically in the Gaelic studies?
Yes, I did for a while. Of course, I didn't do that because.
Welcome to sports media management, baby.
Of course, not many schools around here offer the program that I was looking for, but
Newman offered this.
If you look at so in terms of Irish history, there's a famous case with Soldier F. He was an unnamed British paratrooper who participated in the Bloody Sunday Massacre in 1972, and he was basically shielded from any repercussions by the government. It's basically just like it's the exact same thing. The government will just cover up to protect their military services, to protect their police services,
to protect their guys.
Exactly.
As long as my guys are safe, nothing can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. Let's stop giving these damn Brits
Yeah.
shine.
Let's talk about some of your cases.
Let's move on to that Russian one that I accidentally started going into. So yeah, the UEFA Cup in 1982 was held in the Soviet Union, now Russia. But yeah, needless to say, an exit crushed allegedly because the Soviet Union decided they weren't going to release death totals until they were basically shouted at by the rest of the world, like, "Hey, you let this happen. What the hell's wrong with you?" Quote, because they do not believe this number, 66 people died, but the number is claimed to be up to 340 passed away at one exit of the stadium because the entire exit crumbled from above. It wasn't like someone got crushed up against a fence. No, the entire, like, what would you call the? It's not an archway. There's a name for the thing.
Oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about.
There's a name for it, but anyways, the walkway, the archway above the walkway was not structurally sound. So as fans were leaving the game had already finished. Everything was done. It was a match between Spartak Moscow and Dutch HFC Haarlem.
Mm.
But yeah, fans, I think the Dutch team had won. Russians were a little pissed. Everyone was leaving the stadium, and as they were leaving the stadium through one exit, allegedly 340 people passed away because they decided they weren't going to upkeep with, concrete. I hate Russians. I hate this. It's so stupid. Okay. I have other ones though. I have in March of 1988 in Nepal at the Nepal National Soccer Stadium in, I don't want to butcher the name of the town. Kathmandu?
Oh, Kathmandu. Yeah.
Yeah, Kathmandu, Nepal. Apparently, a hailstorm broke out in the middle of a match, and people were trying to avoid said hail and rushed to an emergency exit. I don't know how many emergency exits were in Nepal's National Soccer Stadium, but apparently one of them was not equipped for the amount of people because 90 people were killed at one exit trying to escape the hail. Apparently, a rush happened. Everyone got caught up against a door. And it was not fun for them. R.I.P. What else do we got? Ooh, so far I believe we're going into the 90s on this one, ladies and gents. At a weirdly named stadium. Was Oppenheimer South African at all?
I don't believe so.
Did he have ties?
No,
to South Africa?
I saw this. I'm pretty sure it's just a different Oppenheimer.
It has to be, because this was at Oppenheimer Stadium in January of 1991 in South Africa.
That country is full of, evil Dutch crackers and, Yakubian devils.
All these people with their blood money. Anyways.
And their disgusting emerald mines. Rat Elon.
Weird that you brought up mines, because this stadium is in the mining town of Orkney, South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
It was a game between the Kaiser Chiefs and the Orlando Pirates.
This is a very big rivalry.
Yes.
I don't know if you know the significance of
didn't know this rivalry, but now that you say it, it makes a whole hell of a lot more sense what I'm about to read. So there was a crush. Stands collapsed, basically. 42 people were dead in said crush. But as the crush was happening, a rogue Pirates fan went around the stadium with a knife attacking Chiefs fans. Why? I guess he thought he could get away with it because, we watched a stadium collapse. Might as well. But, yeah, January 1991 in South Africa. And do I have one more? Our most recent one in Bastia's Furiani Stadium in France, 1992, the French semifinal. Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to butcher the name. Olympique de Marseille?
Marseille?
I don't know how to say.
Olympique de Marseille.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, so stands collapsed. A bunch of stands. Apparently the regulations were all off. But basically, stands collapsed, killing 18 people. But the injury total, wild. 2,300 plus people were injured in the stadium collapse. Don't know why, but in memory of the 18 people who had passed away and the 2,300 injured, in 2021, a law was passed banning matches in the country on May 5th. So, hey, we're going to throw you a bone. don't on May 5th. We're gonna honor these people
Mhm.
because they did not deserve.
Which is
to
actually
go.
nice because that's something I feel like we don't see with most of these other tragedies. I mean, Liverpool fans venerate.
Well, Liverpool fans fought for the
Liverpool fans to this day venerate the people who died. Like on the back of their jerseys, they'll have a 97.
Yeah.
Or I think it's a 98 now with two torches to commemorate them. And they've had this on every single edition of the jersey for years.
which shout out to all those Liverpool fans.
Mhm.
But honestly, I for a man who dislikes the French as much as I do, this is a very stand-up move on their
A
part.
very classy move.
A very classy move on the French part. But yeah, I had that. I thought I had a different one, but it ended up being the Bradford one. I just called it the Valley Parade Stadium
Yeah.
disaster.
Um,
Anything else? I have nothing else.
So I do have three more, and I'm gonna lump these all together because they're all basically the exact same incident happening multiple times in different countries and not learning from our mistakes.
Fantastic.
So, first one took place at Estadio Nacional in Lima, Peru, May 24th, 1964. This is an international game.
64.
This is an international game between Peru and Argentina. With 6 minutes left in the game, Argentina was up 1-0. Peru had equalized, but it was disallowed by the referee, and this led to a pitch invasion from Peru fans who, losing their minds. I don't know if you've ever watched a CONMEBOL game.
No.
South Americans against South Americans.
I've seen clips. I also know who's there's like a huge rivalry between two countries, and I just forget which one it was.
Any of them, dude. You can pick any.
So
two
if I pick
countries.
like Brazil, Argentina, they're gonna.
Oh yeah,
like a blood
if you
sport.
pick any two countries in South America and put them against each other, they are going to.
Is it the Mexican fans who do the homosexual slur?
Yes, the Mexican
Okay.
fans are the ones who. We can't say it on broadcast.
That's why
but
I
yes.
said homosexual slur. I'm not disrespectful.
But yes, that.
I thought I got that confused. I thought it was either Brazil or Mexico.
Which I think is weird that it's Mexico specifically because this is a word that is just a Spanish word. Yeah, I'm surprised that this hasn't like caught on with other nationalities. But
considering there's a lot of Spanish-speaking countries in the world.
many Spanish-speaking countries.
A lot.
The world is a big place with many Spanish-speaking people.
A lot in South America specifically, so I'm shocked nobody picked up on it.
But this led to a pitch invasion, and police responded with shots into the sky, as well as shooting tear gas into the stands. Panicked fans obviously rushed to the gates out of fear, but this stadium didn't actually have turnstiles or gates in a traditional sense. They had basically like, coming out of like a parking garage, like just like an open.
They had like
gate?
a stall.
No, it's just like an open walkway, but you can pull a steel shutter down to close it, right?
So like when I'm going through Center City and I see those stores that pull that weird thing over the front.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the
like
exit,
what GameStop?
yeah,
does.
the exit is big enough for a crowd of people to run through. However, prior to the ending of the match, they had closed the gate with a steel shutter, and this is also at the bottom. This gateway out of this hallway out of the stadium was also at the bottom of a flight of stairs. So because people. The initial rush of people run down the stairs,
Mhm.
get to the steel gutter, and realize it's closed. People at the top of the stairs do not realize that because they can't see down to the hallway.
Of course.
So they keep rushing in.
So
And then the people behind them still don't know what's going on. They keep rushing in.
I blame the police on this one
Yes.
as well.
So
Wow. A lot of police mess ups in this.
there were, mess ups.
It's planned.
This disaster had a total death count of 328.
Damn.
This is the worst disaster by fatalities in soccer history, and that number is also believed to be a low estimate because
I'm pretty sure they would have been like, hey, let's shave off like 100 or 2.
well, because I'll tell you why. The government in their investigation did not include gunshot wounds because after the match, because of the police response, it led to protests in the street. There was protests outside of the hospital where fans were shuttered to. There was protests outside the president's home. There were protests outside the police station, which led to obviously a police backlash.
Wow, the cops really suck today, man.
Yeah, so I mean, the official death count as we have it, although it is most likely much higher, is 328, and there were over 500 injuries. The government, of course, did not blame the police. They actually blamed, get this, Trotskyists.
Do you like Leon Trotsky?
Yes, supporters of Trotsky's
They blamed communism?
Yes. So
Nice.
in the
dude.
in the backdrop of this,
I keep forgetting this happened in '64.
in the backdrop of this disaster, there were revolts and there were peasant revolts and agrarian reform protests going on in Peru. Leftists and communists were also engaging in these protests, and there were also labor disputes and worker demonstrations across the country. So the government basically used this disaster as a way to shift public opinion against the leftists, basically, even though they had absolutely nothing to do with this.
So they were using the Red Scare?
Yeah.
Nice.
And as of 2025, the government still hasn't done an quote-unquote official investigation into this.
What is
So,
it, 60 years post?
Yeah.
They're never going to.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said the government blamed Trotskyists. I mean, I'm sure certain people in the government did, but that was mostly the police investigation. The actual official government investigation has not occurred as of 2025,
which is shocking. I must add.
Second one I want to get into, this happened in Accra, Ghana. This is the Accra Sports Stadium disaster. This took place on May 9th, 2001. This was a match between Accra Hearts of Oak and Asante Kotoko.
These are dope names.
These are, dude.
Why do they got hard names?
I feel like you have to look into African soccer teams because they have.
Do they got hard names and hard mascots?
They have fantastic names.
Their logos probably go hard.
Yeah, I know. This is a conversation I've had with people before about like Major League Soccer and why I can't get into it. It's because
I feel like all the names for Major League Soccer teams are just.
Yeah, exactly. So
New York Red Bulls.
I've told people I don't like MLS, and they're like, "Oh, why? Are you just like a European snob?" And it's like, well, no, actually,
I'm not a Euro snob.
My issue is that it's not American enough. I don't like that the league is.
They're trying to go Euro light.
Yeah, exactly.
Just fully go into the American.
Yeah, exactly. That's my exact point. The best thing about soccer is that the fan culture expresses itself differently in every single country.
And U.S. sports culture, we're good fans.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, exactly. Like if you had like a maybe not in terms of like professional settings, because I feel like especially nowadays, like local like real fans are being priced out, and
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I can't attend half the stuff. I haven't been priced out of Sixers games,
dude,
because they suck.
Dude, like you see playoff teams come out and like they don't even like put on the white shirts anymore. Like the team will lay out the shirts, and these like yuppies who buy these tickets are like $10,000 don't even put the shirts on. Like they don't even want to participate.
No, they don't want to participate. They just want to experience the experience.
They just want to be there to be there. They don't actually even want to watch.
It's for socialites to gather and do their socialite thing rather than an actual diehard sports fan being able to attend their favorite team.
I just think like for 20 years we had like creative names in MLS soccer. We had like
honestly, LA Galaxy, not a bad name. Exactly. Philadelphia Union, absolute garbage.
I like it.
I
love the Union.
I don't like the name.
I like the Union.
I feel like the name could be updated because whenever
No, because if they update it, it's going to be Philadelphia FC or Philadelphia SC.
No, we can't do what the damn Washington Commanders did and be we're the Philadelphia soccer team. No, that's dumb.
But I just mean
put a little bit into it. That's my only thing. Like, I don't like the fact that the New York Red Bulls literally just have the Red Bull logo. Mm-hmm. That's bad.
Well,
that's just bad. I mean, Miami's pretty cool, but what are they, like Miami FC or something?
Inter Miami.
That's dumb.
Yeah. If it actually,
better names.
If it pleases you to know, soccer fans around the world actually protest the Red Bull group because
they do.
Yeah. So see, Red Bull actually has teams in multiple countries. So there's Red Bull New York. There's a Red Bull team in Brazil. RB Leipzig in Germany. Red Bull Salzburg in Austria.
Why do they hate the Red Bulls specifically?
Well, it's really the corporatization of the sport.
Well, because you're the Red Bulls.
No, exactly. No, I'm saying fans.
No, I know. I'm one of these people. I do not like the name. When you took me to that game, I was actually angry that was the name.
Because teams are supposed to represent their community, and when you have Red Bull, sounds like it's just a company advertisement.
Now, granted,
mm-hmm.
Does that fit New York a little bit?
Yeah.
Because New York is a bunch of sellouts.
Yes.
But also, come to think about it, the New York, they just all got to get new names.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell is a Knickerbocker?
You know what? In keeping with my love of American culture, I think we should keep the Knickerbocker name because I I like that. I like that it's a name from 100 years ago that nobody even knows because it's
Everybody only knows the Knicks, but then when someone says Knickerbocker, they're like, "What does
because
that mean?"
it's a piece of slang that fell out of parlance within like 5 years of the team existing, and now we're like 100 years later.
Their mascot's some weird elf man.
Yeah,
That's already the Celtics mascot.
I like that though.
No, but yeah,
I like
the
that's a
Boston
little guy.
Celtics makes sense. The New York Knicks makes no
The
sense.
curse of lucky.
Fair. But yeah, like
Yeah.
the New York Giants, they're cool, I guess. But then you also have the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Are they known for having an airport? They're known for having a really bad airport.
I think in hindsight, if I'm coming from the future and I go back in time to name the New York Jets, I would not name them the Jets
Absolutely not.
because of events that happened in New York in our current timeline.
I saw something about that when Robert Saleh was the coach.
Yeah.
It was really bad. Oh God.
Mhm.
But
But yeah, back to my point about the MLS. Like for decades, we had creative names. We had the Galaxy. We had the Metro Stars. We had Earthquakes, Revolution, Union, Sounders,
dope
Timbers.
names.
But now it's New York City FC, Inter Miami, like LAFC.
They're not the
Charlotte
Galaxy
FC,
anymore?
Charlotte FC. No. There's 2 teams in LA.
That's
The second team is called LAFC.
Why does LA
Charlotte
get
FC.
to have 2 of everything?
Orlando City SC. And that's another thing that makes me mad is that half the teams make their name FC and the other half make their names SC.
So is it football or soccer?
Yeah, pick one. They shouldn't even be called. If you're going to have your team name be Charlotte FC, I think it's boring. But
Also,
at least call it SC because we don't call it football here.
The name of the league is Major League
Yeah.
Soccer. If you call yourself a football team, are you a soccer team?
Mm-hmm.
No, you're a football team. Go over to Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
But no,
We can't just create an American culture. We have to siphon off
I
what
want
the European
names-
style.
I want names that go hard.
Exactly.
Right? I want names that inspire people, and I want mascots to go along with it. If you're gonna make soccer American, make it
Like,
American.
stop trying to get.
Give me some giant poofy-looking bird on the sideline who's screaming at the fans.
Stop trying to beg for legitimacy from European fans because
You're never gonna get it.
European fans just think Americans are stupid and like they're like, oh, they don't know how to do footy right.
You don't know how to do football right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like whatever. This is our
Yeah,
thing.
because we have American
Yeah,
football.
we should have fan cultures that are like the Bills Mafia.
Yes.
We should have college sports style like tailgates and
Oh
like,
my God.
that would be American soccer culture.
Okay. This podcast is literally just so AJ and I can make it onto the board of directors for the MLS, so we can change everything.
That's the long-term plan.
This is the long-term plan, is to change Major League Soccer.
We're gonna do a Maoist style cultural revolution. And,
I can't wait. Honestly, I'm
it-
ready to make Major League Soccer what it's always meant to be.
American. You know what? MLS commissioner, I'm bringing back the penalty shootouts at the end of the game, where instead of actually doing regular penalties, the guy gets the ball at the halfway line and he runs towards the goalkeeper with the ball.
I would. Oh my God,
We used
that
to-
sounds so much better.
We used to have fun stuff, and then Europeans cried about how they're not doing the sport right.
It's not British.
And then
enough.
because I mean I thought we were America. I thought we were supposed to be the world leaders, and
We're not
we're
trailblazing.
bowing to them in their opinions.
We're not trailblazing in a sport that's clearly not ours, but
Mhm.
why not make it ours?
Okay.
We're going off on too much of a
Way
tangent.
too much off topic. All right, so back to the Accra Stadium disaster. So prior to the match, riot teams were stationed around the stadium because Hearts of Oak and Asante Kotoko is a big rivalry.
Checks out.
Accra was winning 2-1 at the end of the match, and this led to Kotoko fans throwing plastic bottles and plastic seats and glass bottles down into the pitch.
Nice.
I don't believe they actually hit anybody in particular, but obviously,
I just think the fact that they're throwing glass onto the field doesn't help.
But again, that's something that's not really uncommon.
I
for
know.
soccer games.
I know, but it's just the fact like they're throwing glass out here.
Right.
You gotta keep the players safe. Even though, when did this happen again?
2001.
Oh.
So, in response to the trash being thrown to the stands, being thrown onto the pitch, police responded with indiscriminate firing of both tear gas and plastic bullets into the Kotoko sections.
Nice.
Again, exact same situation with Lima, Peru. There's a lack of exits, meaning there's a lack of exits, and the gates that were there were locked prior to the match.
This sounds so awful.
Mhm. So fans rushing to escape from the tear gas and rushing to escape from the plastic bullets
I feel
were
like the tear gas was a needless addition to this already awful concoction.
caught in between the wall and the people behind them who were just piling in more and more, creating so much pressure. Prior to this event, actually, the Ghana Institute of Architects had labeled the stadium, and I quote, a death trap because of these design problems.
So the stadium before this disaster was labeled a death trap.
Yes.
Nobody decided they were going to do anything about it.
Another thing that exacerbated the issue was that as the match had already ended, medical staff and emergency personnel, ambulances, had already left the stadium to go back to their hospitals. So
this is the one time I do not blame first responders. They were just, they didn't know they had to be there.
I mean,
stick around.
You could stick around.
Stick around. Maybe not all of you. Some of you stick around. But I don't fully blame them at this. I blame the tear gas.
So because of the complete lack of first responders, fans of both teams actually had to shuttle the dead and injured to the hospital themselves in their own cars and their own trucks.
Nice.
In total, there were 126 deaths, 116 from asphyxiation and 10 from blunt trauma. This is an interesting.
It's just sad.
This is just a small little anecdote. There was one fan, Abdul Muhammad, who had passed out from inhaling the tear gas and was presumed dead. And he later woke up inside of the morgue as he was about to be cremated because somebody stepped on his foot.
That's an act of God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I mean, I think that plays more into the fact that the first responders were so poor. Because how do you not know? How do you not know as an EMT that this guy is still breathing? And
I mean, the fact that they got him out of the stadium to the hospital.
They didn't check his vitals, didn't check his breath.
But the fact that they got him out of the stadium to the hospital.
To the morgue.
Through enough people that he made it to the morgue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had to have seen at least two to three doctors, or at least a nurse. Nobody decided they were going to check his pulse.
Mm-hmm.
This is so stupid.
So, in response, this was actually nice because for once, the police were actually indicted on charges.
Tight, yeah.
6 police officers were charged with a total combined of 127 counts of manslaughter.
Did you say 100 and what?
127 counts.
Damn. They deserve it, though.
In response to this, there were multiple reforms taken in Ghana. There was improvements to stadiums around the country. The Accra Sports Stadium itself actually got completely renovated in 2007.
Tight.
There was increases in stadium security and first aid facilities, and there was also crisis management training programs and emergency response programs that were implemented throughout Ghanaian society. So, again, same thing as the Liverpool one. These are primarily for sporting events, but they're meant to be response teams for anything that happens in the whole city.
Yeah.
Another unfortunate, this actually was really depressing. There's an unfortunate side effect of this event is that there was a sharp decline in attendance across the entire league. And the reason I say that is because I read a story from a fan, a member of the Hearts of Oak fan club. His name was No Man. That's not his actual name, but that's his nickname.
Yeah.
And he would talk about how the culture of their fans was that before games they would go into the community and sing. They would do art. They would bake cakes and bake food for the local community and like just basically have parties before every single game. It was like a celebration. And because of this, attendance declined, and that kind of that cultural it just died.
Put a damper on everything.
Exactly, like
that heartbreaking.
And that's one of the things I love about soccer is that it's a celebration of your community. It's not just you go to the game with your friends, get drunk, and then leave. Like it's like you involve everybody.
Well, yeah.
And you do charity for your community. You bake cakes for people. You cook for people. You sing with people.
What we need to bring to Major League Soccer.
I mean, I don't know. In fairness, I do think the singing, it doesn't work in an American accent.
No. I also, because after watching several WWE events held over in Europe, they are a charming bunch over there.
Yeah. I like, see, with WWE, I think the chants could work. I just don't think the full-fledged songs can work.
Yeah. I do appreciate a sing-songy chant with a name. That would be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to an Eagles fan. We have our own fight song.
Yeah, and
it's not nearly as cheerily.
Last one we're going to talk about is the Kanjuruhan Stadium disaster. This took place in Malang, Indonesia. This is the most recent, October 1st, 2022.
Damn! That is very recent, actually.
And this was between Arema and Persebaya Surabaya.
I think I read about this one.
This is a gigantic rivalry. There actually weren't even Persebaya fans in the stadium because they had been
sectioned off somewhere else entirely?
No, they weren't even allowed to buy tickets. I'm saying
they had to literally keep them separated.
Yeah, the league and police had decided not to allow away fans in because of how fierce this rivalry is between
This is
the
what
groups.
we need in America. Come on.
So at the end of the match, Parasibaya won 3-2, and it was actually their first away win at Arorema ever.
How long have they been a soccer team?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
Because if it's their first win ever, how many times have they played in that
It's not their first win ever. It's their first win at that stadium.
Yeah, if it's their first win ever in that stadium, how many times did they play in that stadium?
Arema is 37 years old, and Parasibaya is 97 years old.
And
so it's really 37 years.
Damn.
So this is their first win in well, now it's 37. It would have been 34 years.
Damn.
So the incident that actually kicked this off is that after the game, 4 of the Arema supporters entered the field to encourage the players, because obviously the home fans are jeering them, screaming at them.
Mm-hmm.
But these 4 fans in particular went down just to like console them and be like, it's okay, like we'll get it next time or whatever. And these 4 fans were chased by police who ripped off their shirts and beat them with clubs.
So again, the police are a problem.
Obviously, this instigated the crowd, and it led to 3,000 fans storming the pitch.
Did you say 3? Oh.
3,000.
Oh.
They began throwing objects and damaging police vehicles that were stationed on the field. Police responded with tear gas, and they responded with tear gas at the invading fans and into the stands.
Why?
They shot. I have it down here. They shot tear gas into stands 12, 10, 11, 14, and the north and south stands.
I don't get blasting people with tear gas. I probably will never understand it. I get it's a suppressant and it's supposed to keep people controlled.
I'm pretty sure it's a war crime, is it not?
Chemical warfare is a war crime.
Yes,
that is in the Geneva Convention.
It's a war crime, but it's perfectly legal to do it on civilian populations.
It's perfectly legal for armed patrols to do this to civilians. But if I were to be in open combat with AJ, I can't throw tear gas at him. That's against the Geneva Convention.
Yeah. So fans in the south stand had rushed to the single exit between gates 12 and 14, but only the one in 14 was locked, or only the one in 14 was unlocked. So gates 12 and 13.
We're getting tear gassed with no escape.
Exactly.
Nice. All right.
This led to 135 deaths and 583 injuries as of now. There was the youngest fan that died was 3 years old.
3?
Yes.
The oldest?
So, I don't know the oldest, but between the ages of 3 and 17, of the 135, 39 were between 3 and 17.
So children.
Yes.
The police were murdering children.
The police were murdering children.
Nice.
And again, this just like with Hillsborough and just like with the Lima disaster, there's absolutely a police cover-up going on with this. Police General Listio Sibit Prabowo claims that there were only 11 shots of tear gas, but per the Washington Post, their investigation found that there were over 40.
I feel like I would believe the unbiased.
Yeah, so the police are underselling the amount of tear gas that they issued by 75%.
Please quadruple that.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think with this one, they were trying to do the exact same tactics they did with Hillsborough, where the fans already have a reputation for hooliganism and violence. I mean, it's obviously bad enough that rival fans aren't even allowed in the stadium, and they're just hoping to use that to kind of cover their own brutality.
Yeah. No, this one, out of all of the ones that have soured me, since this is the most recent and I've actually been alive for this just seems like a needless event.
Because again, like the police,
they escalated it.
They're always escalating. They can't just escort the 4 fans off the field. They have to rip their clothes off and beat them.
They have to rip their clothes off, beat them, and then instigate enough people in the stands to try to storm the field. And rather than just handling the people who storm the field, let's gas out the people in the stands
that
haven't gotten involved, so that they can suffer too.
Well, because this is just how the police operate in this country and in every country around the world. They just are looking for excuses to.
They want to assert. They want to assert power.
To dish out ultra violence, because that's.
If they can't assert their power, then they can't do anything, and then they're like, "Oh,
that's their role.
Why did I even go into the field?"
That's their role in society. Is just to recruit maniacs and bloodthirsty animals, who just want to beat people and kill people with impunity as enforcers of the state and protectors of capital.
Not all of them, we have to say that, but a great majority of them.
The opinions of Matt Leak do not reflect the opinions of AJ Kavanaugh. Um,
I'm sorry.
but I think, so I don't know if you had this exact thought when you were looking through this, but I had the thought of, why is it always soccer stadiums?
Yeah, no,
So-
I did. I was very confused. I was actively searching. Like, I think I looked at
Yeah.
baseball and I didn't get much.
So my working theory is that it's two sides. One,
Soccer's an old sport.
soccer's an old sport, and most of the stadiums were built well over 100 years ago with minimal to no renovations up until today.
Well, yeah, because they
So-
thought they could get away with it.
Yes, like you see something like Akragana, like the architects had already said that place was a death trap because it was built many years ago. You look at Bradford, that stadium was built with wood in 1905, and they didn't think to update it at any point in 80 years, and then obviously wood caught fire. You
I
look
blame the complacency of the European
you
mind.
look at Hillsborough, and you see that, you know, they have a pen that holds 10,000 people and has been known to cause crushes, and they do nothing about it. They think let's let 50,000 people in instead.
Why not just fill it to the brim? Pack them
Exactly.
like sardines.
Oh, we only have a few exits out of the stadium. Why don't we just lock them so that nobody can get out in the event of a disaster? Because like even if the police aren't shooting tear gas, because like I'm not sure if that's like the most foreseen event, but what if a fire breaks out? What if what if a smoke, because fans bring in smoke bombs? What if a smoke bomb goes wrong? And what if a flare goes off and people are like choking? You can't just lock exits so people can't leave the stadium. What if someone just wants to leave early, like for no reason?
You're not allowed out.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like a comedy club now. You gotta lock your phone away and you can't leave until the show's over.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think that plays into the other half. If it's not stadium design, it's stadium procedure, because it's like,
they need
Yeah.
to a full revamp update.
well, they
of
have,
everything. No, again,
but the problem is it's too little, too late.
this is in
how many-
2022.
How many hundreds of people have died at soccer games?
well,
because-
I mean,
because-
from the totals we've just read, we're at
Yeah.
least 1,000 deep.
And all of these are happening one after another. Like it's not like there's a high concentration of ones in the 80s, but it's like we're
It-
still seeing them 40 years later.
It spanned a little bit.
Yeah.
There was a few in the 90s that happened that I didn't write down.
Mhm.
I think there were a good 8.
Mhm.
And they were all Euro Cup finals, big deal sporting events that they just decided they were not going to take the precautions necessary to avoid disaster. Now, granted, are you thinking that the disaster is going to happen when you're planning these events? No.
No, but
Who does?
But you have
to take that. You have to take a precaution.
It's risk assessment. You have to.
If you're
if,
gonna
if
put,
you're running a facility, if you're running a stadium, if you're running any building, really, you have to do risk assessment.
if you're gonna put more than 15 people into a room,
Mhm. Yeah.
be sure of danger.
I mean, this is what we learn. I mean, not to brag about my education, but this is like what we learn about in class. Like you just have to think about everything. If not fatal risk, there could also be
there could still be injury risk.
legal risk. Yeah, you got to have a wet floor sign. You got to properly mark exits. You got to properly mark.
You got to
places.
make sure that your stands aren't made out of 80-year-old wood.
Yeah, you got to make sure your stands aren't made out of wood. You got to make sure that there's
specifically wood that was
with-
almost 100 years old.
with a gigantic pile of kindling directly underneath
oh
it.
my God, is that paper under there? Yeah, no, that was just a
So, yeah.
bonfire.
I think stadium design, stadium procedure. The idea of one locking the gates, allowing medical personnel to leave early, allowing the police to open up gates that shouldn't be open.
Allowing
because
the
they want
police to run themselves at full power
Mhm.
seems like an issue as well.
Yeah, but I think the police running full power also plays into the second half of it. I think the reason there's been so many soccer disasters is because of the stigma of hooliganism.
So instead of letting it play out a little bit, they overreact and
Yeah.
overcorrect to the point
Yeah.
where they're like, we just have to subdue everybody. If we
Yeah.
don't subdue everybody, they're all going to.
I think it's that because there's this cultural idea that the fans are drunk, the fans are violent. Even if it's not the case, the police, because of that stigma, are given full range to dish out brutality
They
against
have to
them.
be able to handle the hooligans with hooliganism themselves.
So in the case of the Indonesian disaster, hooliganism was cited as a factor as a big factor in terms of how this thing played out, because it says between 2005 and 2018 there were 95 football related deaths between fans. And
Did you say 95?
yes,
And
but
that is in a 13-year span?
exactly, that's my point. Hooliganism is cited as a reason for this disaster because 95 people died in 13 years, when in one single night the police killed 135 people.
And you did say they were convicted, right? Punishments were dealt out?
For the Indonesian one, I don't believe so as of now. For Ghana, yes. For Peru, definitely not.
Okay, so the Indonesian one, they gotta get
yeah,
cracking down.
You
on
look
that.
at.
I know the legal system isn't great.
Yeah,
come on.
Fans are blamed for violence, but if you look at every single major disaster,
the fans
there's a common denominator of who the culprit is, and it's police.
Except for the South African one. I need to make that clear. That guy was just stabbing people in the stands.
But how many people did he stab?
I think he got to 11.
11, and then
he was in a group of people, and apparently like an altercation had sprouted because they don't like each other.
Yeah.
They're opposing sports fans. But yeah, apparently he just whipped out a knife, started stabbing people as he noticed a stand crush because he's like, why not?
I'm not trying to downplay the existence of hooliganism. Obviously, especially in the
hooliganism
80s,
in every sport.
But no, 80s hooliganism in soccer was particularly bad, I would say.
A little uncouth, but it is what it is.
But again, I just do think that like the police as a unit take that justification.
They overcorrect.
Yeah, they overcorrect. And every single major disaster, when the deaths are in the hundreds, it's at the hands of police.
Well, cause that's the thing. I have several just pure disasters, no police involvement.
Mm-hmm.
The total never breached 100 in terms of death.
Yeah,
total never breached 100. And as soon as the police get involved, skyrockets. But hey, that's I guess the lesson for this podcast is if you're going to a soccer event, stay away from the cops.
Yeah. But you know what? And that's another thing is like I think we were talking about earlier how it's surprising that there's so few American disasters, which I think we should pride ourselves on.
I do pride myself on that.
I am surprised by that fact considering,
I
think how the police are in our country.
Because it's never actually a disaster at a sporting event at the stadiums. Like Wells Fargo had one a couple of years ago where I think there was a concert going on and somebody, because Philadelphians can't just be regular people, somebody wanted to skip the line at the escalator and just kind of like dropped off the second floor. Mm-hmm. But that was because they were trying to scoot around an escalator. It wasn't anybody else's fault, I don't think. Don't quote me on this. I have to reread that whole thing. But yeah, I don't hear about major sporting event tragedies in the United States unless it's like, there was a parade. Because like at the Chiefs parade 2 years ago, there was that shooting that happened.
Right.
But that wasn't an active game.
Yeah. And I think part of it is that we renovate stadiums so frequently. I think the
stadiums in Philly are going under renovation right now.
Yeah, no, the Sixers are trying to build a new stadium.
That got kiboshed. Thank God. I did not want them to build a stadium in Center City.
Yeah, the people in Center City didn't want them to build a stadium.
Well, they were going to build it right into Chinatown.
And the people in Chinatown
my stomping ground.
Yeah,
I do not appreciate that.
Stomping ground.
I've been to Chinatown more times than I can count, and I did not appreciate the fact that they were going to they were going to get rid of half of Chinatown so they could put this eyesore of a stadium in the middle of the city. Don't do that.
Exactly.
We have Wells Fargo Center, and they have a $10 billion project currently in the works. I don't know if you saw that or anything.
For what?
For the Philly Sports Complex.
Yes.
So you know where Citizens Bank, Wells Fargo, and the Link are?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make that. You know how when we were talking in the podcast a couple of weeks, our first podcast, actually, and I brought up Venetian Dallas?
Yeah.
They're doing that in Philadelphia for real. And I think it's slated to be completed in 2032? I don't know. But it's a whole thing. They're going to put hotels, restaurants. They're going to revamp the stadiums. They're going to make everything nice. I think they're going to prevent like actual main roads going through it, and it's going to be like little roads circling around everything. I think it's going to be less congested. And I hope they get rid of the just abhorrently ugly parking and make it look nice. But
I mean, like, to your point, like we're always looking for new stadiums.
We're overcorrecting in a good way.
No, we're always looking for new stadiums just to get like whatever the shiny new thing is. Like we have stadiums that are like 20 years old, and the teams are still trying to build like a new stadium. You know what I mean? Like you just built one in my lifetime.
Like didn't the Oakland Raiders used to have to play at the Oakland A's field?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now neither team exists now, but that was a thing.
But it's a matter of we're constantly building new stadiums, and I guess
we're also a relatively newer country, so
and that our regulations are so robust. I feel like compared to these other leagues, like you didn't have a mandatory rule that stadiums had to have seats completely like full of seats until
I'm pretty
1994.
Sure if you told us fat ass Americans that there weren't going to be seats in the stadium, we would not show up.
Absolutely not.
Now, granted, do we spend our entire game in the seat? No. but I would like to take a seat every now and again.
But I'd like to say that it's nice that we don't have these stadium disasters thanks to our regulations. However, I am worried that we do not apply these regulatory standards in other sections of our society.
Yes.
I know in the Philadelphia area right now, you said how many? Is it 5 bridges that are under review for risk?
There are currently 3 bridges under investigation of risk of collapsing. It's Commodore Barry Bridge, the Walt Whitman Bridge, and
Ben Franklin, right?
I believe so.
Yes.
And what's funny is I drove over the Commodore Barry Bridge 2 days ago.
We're always driving over these bridges.
I hate that bridge so much.
Thousands and thousands of people go over every day, and these have just been not kept up since they were built.
I think it was some code inspector was like, I think we should investigate.
Yeah.
And apparently the investigation is either still going on or has been fully completed. But when I was going over the Commodore Barry Bridge, there were forklifts and things on it, which means they're doing work.
But I mean, that's just a problem around the entire country. All of our infrastructure has been built 100 years ago and not updated since. We have rusty bridges, we have rusty railroads.
Put the same level of work and care that we did into our sports stadium regulations as we did into, I don't know, streets, I feel like America would be a utopia. But,
And, our current government is very much trying to deregulate and,
because regulation costs money.
Exactly. You see Doge getting rid of all these regulatory bodies. And
I saw that he got kicked out of the White House the other day.
That was very nice.
Yeah, it was.
I saw
CNN's fucking. Oh my god, my apologies again. CNN's. What is it called? What's the thing? Chiron.
Yeah,
the Chiron. CNN's Chiron said like, Elon's toxic for Trump, and the fact that was on a national news broadcast and they used the term toxic to describe a 78-year-old man and a guy in his late 40s?
Yeah.
I have no idea how old Elon is.
But, even if it's not just in terms of building regulations, they're trying to get rid of regulations in the FDA, trying to get rid of the Department of Education.
The entire Department of Education.
And it's in terms of societal collapse, but that's
but hey, we got our sports stadium.
We're going to have a general societal collapse, but then also getting rid of these regulations, which they could go for in terms of building regulations. I mean, the only reason we have these regulations is because, as we've seen with some of these soccer teams, these owners will not be proactive to actually save lives because they've done the math.
So we have to force proactivity.
They've done the math, whatever calculations in their head, to find that the cost of spending £400,000 just to make your stadium not a fire pit, and they said, oh, that's more valuable than 100 lives, and
that's more valuable than the $20 million we're gonna have to pay out to these poor suckers who came to our stadium. My issue is the fact that all of these things could have been avoided, whether it be the reining in of police due to the fact that they just love to start shooting as soon as they can, and the fact that I'm not going to claim that they're billionaire owners, but they are owners of sporting franchises and stadiums that are needlessly cheap.
Yes.
If you're going to own a sports team, if you're going to own a stadium, put the money into it to make it a quality product. Otherwise, you're selling people on, we're kind of good, you should come see us. It doesn't make any sense. If I'm going to a stadium, I would like it to be an enjoyable experience.
But it's the same.
That's why Stan Kroenke's got it down with SoFi. I have never been, because I've never been to Los Angeles.
I've seen it. I haven't been there personally.
But isn't it like a spectacle?
Every time I've flown into LA, we land right next to it.
And it's a spectacle.
It's beautiful.
It's a gorgeous looking stadium. Granted, can I ever afford to go in there? Probably not, because they've priced me out of there. But it's the fact that, yes, it's a brand new stadium. Like the Clippers' new stadium that they just opened up. I forget. It's in Inglewood? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a gorgeous stadium because he put $7 billion into it because he cares.
But these corporate owners, in terms of not even just sports, but in just terms of anything in general, do not value human lives.
No, they value money.
You want to deregulate the FDA so these business owners can start putting wood chips in Rice Krispies,
like they
and
already don't do that to Cheerios.
Exactly, and putting motor oil instead of actual olive oil in terms of what we're buying.
Or putting more of the byproduct of gasoline into Pop-Tarts than there already is, because that is a thing.
Yeah, and I think it comes to a good ending point where regulations are boring, but they're extremely necessary.
Incredibly important. But before we go, a little update in the world of sports as of today.
Yeah.
Mike Malone was fired by the Denver Nuggets along with their general manager, and I'm just confused about it. I have no idea why you would fire someone who is a third seed and 5 games out of the playoffs.
I believe right now they're 5th, though, aren't they?
They're 3rd.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Because like every team has like either 46 or 45.
3rd through 8.
Yeah.
The split between everyone's within 2 games of each other basically, and I think the closest one's 1. But yeah, the Denver Nuggets as of today were the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, and 2 years ago won a championship. There's 5 games left in the regular season, and they decide, hey, we're gonna can our general manager and our coach. Apparently, from what I heard coming over here, because I was listening to stuff, there was a toxic environment in the Nuggets organization. Apparently the GM and the coach did not like each other.
Yeah.
And apparently the coach was too much of a hard ass, but apparently not a hard ass on Jokic or Jamal Murray, who I have a gripe with. Why are you not a hard ass on Jamal Murray? He was fat as hell when he came into the season this year.
And he never performs in the regular season.
No, he's only a playoff performer. He's like playoff Jimmy, but with no sauce, dude.
I think he had some aura in those Lakers series.
Oh, for sure. Jamal Murray in the playoffs has aura. I remember the.
I'm pretty sure. I think I saw this years ago. Not years ago. I saw this months ago on Twitter. But it was like statistically like the biggest playoff riser in the NBA. I think
oh my God, no!
It was either in modern NBA or NBA history.
It was NBA
Jamal
history.
Murray.
He doubled or tripled every one of his stats. Because that regular season he averaged like I don't know, it was like 12 or 15. The playoffs he averaged like 35 for no reason. Hit like a 360 layup in the air over LeBron. Granted, he lost in 5, but god damn.
Yeah, I think it also speaks to owners being stupid, but in a different way. I feel like the entire justification of this is just that like
he was trying to settle pettiness way too dumbly.
My takeaway of it is that in my mind, I think I think Josh Kroenke saw.
I forgot that they're both Kroenkes.
I think Josh Kroenke saw that the Grizzlies fired their coach, and he's like, "Hey, well, we're only at 1 game better than them. We should probably fire our coach too." Even though we're 3 games out from the playoffs.
Well, apparently there was things brewing. Apparently, if Mike Malone didn't win the title 2 years ago, he could have gotten fired then. But then he won an NBA championship. But he beat people in the NBA Finals. So,
they've dealt with injuries all season. That's my point. Like, they don't do it. Like, they don't look at anything in context. Like, all right, fine. You're not exactly where you want to be, but I mean,
you're the 3rd seed,
and
you
still have a chance. You know,
you're a 3rd seed.
You're a 3rd seed.
That's like the highlight of some sports fandoms for decades.
You're a 3rd
fact
seed.
That the Pistons made it to the playoffs this year. Yeah. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, they're the 5 seed." I don't know.
You're a 3rd seed. You're a 3rd seed with issues of injuries all season, and you still are going into the playoffs with a nuclear bomb. Who like
he's more than a nuclear bomb at this point.
Like with Jokic, like.
But he's a nuclear bomb that also has a coughing baby on his team.
I mean, granted, I did think, and I still am more vindicated now to believe that OKC is going to come out of the West.
I believe it's OKC or the Lakers because of what the Lakers did to OKC this past week.
But I just feel like
it blew them out by 30, man.
Even with the matchup, because I feel like OKC, because of like
they can throw too many people at Denver,
and because of their size, like they have a guy like Holmgren who
they have Holmgren and Hartenstein. All exactly. You got, I mean, granted, Jokic will body Chet Holmgren. Like, I'm not going to say he's going to stand up to him, but Hartenstein's he's kind of thick,
exactly.
But I'm ethnically ambiguous.
You have they have the personnel that where I feel like they would have locked up Denver anyway. But I mean, with Jokic, you still have that chance.
Well, with Jokic you have the best player in the world.
Jokic can throw one of those like ridiculous like over the head threes from like 50 feet out.
Don't even get me started. Did you see the play from like 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
He was behind half court by at least 10 to 15 feet, does a Euro step around the guy, then chucks an offhand 3-pointer, nothing but net. Why? And it was like to end either the third or it was to go into the half, and I was like, oh, well, they're winning, and they did. I think they won that game by like 10.
I just don't understand what the thought process is behind firing your coach right when the playoffs start.
If you were gonna fire Mike Malone, I don't know why you would have waited for him to go 43-27.
Yeah,
and
it's not even a bad record.
That's a fantastic
not
record
even a
for
bad
most
record.
coaches. If you know what, if the Sixers went 43-27 this year, I'd be a happy man. I'd be so happy.
Nick Nurse has not been fired.
No, Nick Nurse hasn't been fired. I don't think Nick Nurse is going to get fired. I think they blame Joel Embiid for all that. But
Yeah.
and I think we should medically retire Joel Embiid, but that's a whole other thing. Tank for Cooper Flag. I swear to God, if the Jazz get Cooper Flag, I'm going to be so mad.
if Adam Silver
lets Cooper Flag rot in Utah,
in his
very upset.
If Adam Silver lets Cooper Flag rot in Utah in his NBA, I think it's just.
I mean, okay. The only thing I have to say this: if Cooper Flag ends up rotting away in Utah, he did fix Wemby to the Spurs, so I'll give him that.
That's like the only good thing he's done in his entire reign, though.
I mean, everybody's just kind of like, well, he was David Stern's protege.
David Stern did that 40 years ago with Ewing.
Everybody knows it. LeBron even came out and said it in his interview with Pat McAfee. He's like, come on, me to the Cavs. Let's be real. That wasn't an act of God.
Like, you are the commissioner. You know what's best for business. Do what's best for
Every
business.
year that man comes out and says he's going to do what's best for business, and he always talks about these big business ideas.
But you know what? In fairness, I don't think there is a good destination for Cooper Flag at all.
I think
in terms of the teams that are terrible, and in terms of the fact that I don't like the Sixers and don't want Cooper Flag to be on the Sixers.
I would love Cooper Flag to be on the Sixers, but
I don't think there's a good outcome for me no matter where Cooper Flag goes, because he's either going to land on some bum franchise.
Well, okay, there's one spot that if he ends up on, I think we should all just give him a 21-gun salute and already have his funeral. If he ends up on Washington, I'm not going to say that he needs to like suffer a debilitating injury that puts him out for like 5 years, the entirety of his rookie contract, but he might have to do that.
I think Washington's the best scenario, though, just because he can team up with Alex Sarr.
They play the same position. That's the problem.
No, they don't play the same position.
They're both forwards.
He can play small forward. Matt, this is the era of spacing. You can have like 5-point guards.
Yeah, but do you really want Cooper Flag to be on a team with Jordan Poole?
I don't want
Jordan Poole being on a roster right now is kind of wild.
I don't want Cooper Flag to be on the Sixers.
I don't
want Cooper Flag to be on Utah. I don't want Cooper Flag to be in New Orleans.
But can you imagine 2 Duke #1 overall picks?
I don't want Cooper. I don't want Cooper to suffer the same fate that Zion did, which is that you eat too much like gumbo.
I have a feeling. No, okay. If Cooper
and
Flag
Cajun,
and
gain 200 pounds
in New
and
Orleans,
ruin your knees,
he is not going the Zion route, and I have full faith in that.
And in fairness, he hasn't already had the knee injuries that Zion had before he got.
Well,
to the
but
league.
also he hasn't been walking around at 300 pounds in the off season every year.
No, I'm just saying, for a guy like Zion, he was destined to fail.
Well,
I feel like
Zion was given all of the high school hype with all those high school mixtapes, and then was also given the probably poorest spot ever. If he went 1 pick later and went to Memphis, I feel like he'd have a completely different career.
Well, I don't know how much better it would be, because he had those knee injuries coming into the league, and
he only suffered really 1 knee injury.
No,
in college.
it's only 1, but for a guy his size and for a play style like his, where it's so high impact and so athletic.
I mean, yeah, blowing out your shoe didn't.
I'm saying just 1. It's not just 1. It snowballs.
Well, I mean,
he was always going to have those injuries going into the league.
Has never played over 65 games.
I'm saying he was always going to have those injuries going into the league, but I feel like it's exacerbated by the fact that he's living in a place where he's free to gain as much weight as he wants by eating that extremely delicious, mind you, New Orleans food.
I saw a picture of him recently, and he was walking around at 264 pounds, and that was the fattest 264 I think I've ever seen in my life. It was embarrassing. It was a picture of him at the age of 20. How old is he? 26? There's a picture of him at the age of 26 next to 40-year-old LeBron, and just go to the gym, man.
Get on the peds.
You're an NBA basketball
player. Get on the PEDs.
You're an NBA basketball player,
decency.
and you're treating your body like it's a used car.
You are one of the most insane athletes on the planet.
Please
act like it.
If Zion actually tried, Zion would be, because nobody's going to give him the credit that he deserves in terms of just raw athleticism. He may be one of the most gifted athletes of all time.
Zion is a Kryptonian.
I mean, when you're walking
He's
around
a superhuman.
6'5", 290, and you have a 45-inch vertical leap, it's kind of like, maybe you were made in a lab a little bit.
I'm just saying that 1 block at Duke when he jumps 20 feet in the air.
God, I saw that the other week.
I think about that every day. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's the fact that he blocked a 3-point shot with the tip of his finger and then launched it into the stands like an ICBM missile. It was insane. I miss Prime Zion. It's the fact that I'm saying Prime Zion like he's not 26 years old. He's supposed to be entering his prime.
Hold faith, bro. He had a
decent season.
He didn't play as many games, but he had a good.
He had 35 games this
for
year.
Zion standards. He had a really good season.
35 games this year, and the man can shoot 60% from the field at will. At will. I remember when he was his one season where he was actually good. He averaged like 25 on 60% shooting, and everyone was like, "This Shaquille O'Neal."
He was averaging LeBron numbers for a time, like
because that was his projection.
This very season, yeah.
His first NBA game, he hit 4 threes, and they were set shots. He wasn't jumping. It's so annoying. It's so annoying that draft class ended up being a bunch of just flake washouts. Ja makes me angry.
There's still time.
I know.
Hold out hope, brother.
But Ja just got fined $75,000 for a gun gesture. Like, come on. Stop playing with guns, Ja. Zion, put the fork down, and we can have the NBA we've always wanted.
The fat shaming of Matt Leak does not represent the views of AJ Kavanaugh.
Don't be an NBA basketball player and weigh 290 pounds, please.
Okay, fair.
Don't be an NBA basketball player, weigh 290, and be the biggest man in the league by a mile, and you're not even close to the tallest. All right, the tallest is almost a foot taller than you.
But that rounds off this week's episode of the Worldwide World of Worldwide Sports. What are we covering next week, Matt Leak?
Next week, we get to cover the wonderful world of what were we naming it? Sports influencers? Influencers that became athletes, allegedly.
Well, sports influencers, but I think we're doing both. Like,
okay.
We're doing athletes that have become influencers and influencers who are related to sports.
Prepare to hear a lot of hate next week. Prepare to hear. This is a topic I'm very passionately angry about.
But I have been AJ, and this has been Matt Leak.
I have been Matt. Thank you for listening, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
See you next time.